Hachiko waited for his owner for 9 years, but this story is even more incredible. Imagine 15 dogs left alone in Antarctica. Their humans abandoned them, promising to return, but they never came back. A year later, an expedition made an unbelievable discovery. 2 dogs survived in conditions no human could endure. How did they do it? Why did their story captivate all of Japan? This is a story from the Japanese Antarctic expedition with the dogs Taro and Jiro. In January 1957, Japan organized an expedition to Antarctica. The terrible conditions faced by early 20th century polar explorers were long gone. Unlike early expeditions, the Japanese team lived in comfort, private rooms, heated floors, excellent cooks, and even a bar. They could even make phone calls home. But no one expected that this comfort would be deceptive. According to the plan, the research team was supposed to stay at the Showa base for a whole year. In February 1958, another team was scheduled to replace them. However, things did not go as planned. An unexpected and powerful storm caused the icebreaker carrying the relief team to get stuck in the ice, far from the Japanese base. Bad weather in February 1958 led to the cancellation of the second team's mission. The first team had to be evacuated from the Showa base by helicopter. And this is where something happens that will make you clench your fists. There was little space in the aircraft, and the explorers were forced to leave 15 sled dogs at the Antarctic base. The decision made by the team can hardly be called anything but cruel. But did they have any other choice? People believed that the relief team would arrive at the base in a few days. To prevent the dogs from running away, they chained them and left enough food for several weeks, planning to return for them. But the expedition was declared over, and the Japanese would not return to Antarctica for another year. Importantly, the team had chosen Sakhalin Huskies as sled dogs for the expedition. These dogs are made for extreme conditions. Their endurance is astonishing. Under extreme conditions, they can survive without food for twice as long as ordinary dogs. And even at minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit, they feel confident. So, as you might have guessed, they are ideal candidates for dog sled teams. In the end, 15 such dogs were left secured at the Antarctic base. In effect, the people left them in conditions they could not survive. And to be fair, upon returning to Japan, the polar explorers faced heavy criticism for leaving the dogs behind. However, it was explained that rescuing the animals was impossible and would have involved significant risks to human lives, risks the organization chose not to take. A year later, on January 14, 1959, the third expedition returned to Showa Station to resume the work that had been interrupted the previous year, and they discovered the location where the incident had occurred. 7 of the 15 dogs, still restrained, did not survive, but 8 others had broken loose and left the base. Out of those 8 dogs, 6 were never found. But 2 dogs, Taro and Jiro, were still alive and were located not far from the base. Taro and Jiro were brothers, sons of Kuma and Furin. At the time the dog team was sent to the base, they were 3 years old. They were the youngest in the pack, and somehow they managed to survive in Antarctica for an entire year, even though experts had claimed they wouldn't last even 2 months. Professor Yasutsaku Kitamura of Kyushu University wrote the following: "The food supplies for people and dogs at Showa Station remained untouched. The 7 dogs that were restrained were found deceased, and they appeared undisturbed. I believe the Sakhalin dogs survived by scavenging local wildlife and organic remains, such as penguins, seabirds, and fish frozen in the ice. Remarkably, the dogs that broke free did not disturb the remains of their companions, even in a state of severe deprivation. And astonishingly, they did not lose their trust in the people who had been forced to leave them behind. Upon meeting the polar explorers, the dogs ran toward the people and were extremely happy. Taro and Jiro became national heroes of Japan, on par with Hachiko. Until the 1990s, the Sakhalin Husky was the most popular breed in the country. Unfortunately, after this event, the dogs' paths diverged. Jiro remained in Antarctica and continued to serve at the Showa Research Station. After his death, his body was brought back to Japan and embalmed. It is now displayed at the National Museum of Nature and Science in the Ueno district of Tokyo. Taro returned to Sapporo, his hometown, and lived at Hokkaido University until his death in 1970. His taxidermied body is exhibited in the Museum of National Treasures in the Botanical Garden at Hokkaido University. The story of Taro and Jiro has not been forgotten. This is how Japan commemorated them. On the grounds of the Polar Research Institute in Tokyo stands a group of 15 statues of Sakhalin huskies. Together, they serve as a memorial to the dogs who remained in Antarctica forever.